What if I told you that one of the most electrifying rookie quarterbacks the NFL has seen in a generation, a player who single-handedly shattered viewership records and became a global trending topic after his very first appearance, was about to be sold for less than the price of a used car? This isn't a hypothetical question. It's the core of a seismic rumor trembling through the league's foundations. A story so audacious, it sounds like fiction. It's a story about a potential heist of the decade, a grand larceny of talent unfolding in plain sight. It's a saga fueled by the damning admission of a billionaire owner who never wanted the player on his team, a rival franchise sinking in a sea of desperation, and a rumored price tag so insultingly low it represents a betrayal of logic, talent, and the very spirit of competition. This is the unbelievable unfolding story of how Shedeur Sanders, the rookie phenom poised to take the league by storm, could be unceremoniously exiled from Cleveland before his journey has even truly begun, triggering a chain reaction that would redefine the fortunes of two franchises and leave the NFL world asking one simple question: how could they let this happen? The genesis of this entire cataclysm can be traced back to a single preseason game, an otherwise meaningless exhibition that Shedeur Sanders transformed into a personal coronation. Let's be clear, as a fifth-round draft pick, Sanders walked into the Cleveland Browns training camp with zero guarantees. He was buried on the depth chart, an afterthought behind a 39-year-old Super Bowl MVP and a handful of other quarterbacks with more experience or higher draft pedigree. The script written for him was simple: hold a clipboard, learn the playbook, stay quiet, and maybe, just maybe, get a few garbage time snaps at the end of the night. But from the moment his number was called against the Carolina Panthers, it was clear Shedeur Sanders had no intention of following anyone's script but his own. He trotted onto the field not with the wide-eyed panic of a rookie, but with the unnerving calm of a seasoned field general. The players around him were a collection of third-stringers and camp bodies, men fighting desperately for the last few spots on the roster. The offensive line was porous. The receivers struggled to get separation. It was a recipe for disaster. Yet Sanders operated as if he were in a soundproof bubble of pure focus. His first series was a masterclass in efficiency. A quick out route here, a check down to the running back there. He wasn't forcing anything. He was simply taking what the defense gave him. Then came the first true test, a third and long situation with the pocket collapsing around him. Instead of panicking and taking a sack, he demonstrated a preternatural feel for pressure, subtly sliding to his left, keeping his eyes downfield, and delivering a crisp 15-yard strike to a receiver he'd probably only thrown to a dozen times in practice. It was a play that made the entire stadium and everyone watching at home sit up and take notice. The performance was so profoundly competent, so shockingly polished, that it nearly broke the NFL Network's viewership records for a preseason game. This wasn't just a game anymore, it was an event. Every throw he made was clipped and shared on social media, racking up millions of views within hours. Analysts who had been skeptical, who had dismissed him as a product of his father's fame, were now tripping over themselves to anoint him the certified steal of the draft. But while the outside world was erupting in a chorus of praise and excitement for Cleveland's newfound gem, a much darker narrative was solidifying behind the closed doors of the organization. A narrative rooted in a stunningly careless and ultimately damning admission made months earlier. The true source of this institutional rot, the poison that infected Shedeur Sanders standing with the Browns from the very beginning, flows from one man, the team's controversial owner, Jimmy Haslam. Shortly after the 2024 NFL Draft, during a press conference where owners are typically expected to sing the praises of their new acquisitions, Haslam uttered a sentence that now echoes with cataclysmic significance. When asked about selecting Sanders in the 5th round, he candidly told reporters, "If you had told me Friday night we'd pick Shedeur, I would have said that's not happening." Think about the gravity of that statement. This wasn't just an offhand remark. It was a public declaration of dissent from the most powerful man in the organization. In the hyper-political ecosystem of an NFL franchise, where every player's security is tied to their perceived value to the top brass, Haslam's words were a political death sentence. He essentially announced to the entire world, and more importantly, to every everyone inside the building that Shedeur Sanders was not his guy. He was an outsider, a draft pick, who slipped through the cracks against the owner's wishes. This single quote instantly made Sanders an organizational orphan. It meant that no matter how well he played, no matter how much the fans loved him, he would never have the foundational support from ownership that is crucial for a young quarterback's survival and development. He was, from day one, expendable. For an owner like Haslam, whose tenure in Cleveland has been defined by instability, a revolving door of coaches and quarterbacks, and a well-documented history of impulsive decision-making, a player without his personal stamp of approval is not an asset, they are a liability. He was fighting a battle he couldn't win, not just for the starting job, but for his very place in the franchise's long-term vision. This toxic political dynamic is only made worse by the utter chaos that is the Cleveland Browns quarterback room. It's less of a strategic depth chart and more of a crowded five-man logjam, a ticking time bomb of conflicting timelines and competing agendas that makes sustained development for any one player nearly impossible. At the top of this dysfunctional pyramid sits Joe Flacco, a 39-year-old Super Bowl MVP who provides veteran leadership but is undeniably in the final twilight of his career. Then you have Dillon Gabriel, a promising rookie from Oregon, who, like Sanders, is trying to make the difficult leap to NFL speed. Competing with him is Kenny Pickett, a former first-round pick and a cast-off from Philadelphia, a player carrying the baggage of failure and desperately trying to resurrect a career that has flatlined. And just to muddy the waters further, the team recently brought in Tyler Huntley, the definition of a reliable but thoroughly unspectacular backup. Into this chaotic mix, you drop Shedeur Sanders, the wild card, the player whose undeniable talent and immediate fan favorite status threatens to upend the entire carefully constructed, yet deeply flawed, hierarchy. For a coach like Kevin Stefanski, it's a management nightmare. For an owner like Jimmy Haslam, who prioritizes control and order above all else, a player who generates this much external buzz and internal pressure is not a blessing. He's a potential mutiny. The fan clamor for Sanders to get more reps, to start, creates a weekly controversy that Haslam clearly wants to avoid. In his mind, the simplest solution isn't to navigate the complex situation. The simplest solution is to eliminate the source of the problem. Moving Sanders wouldn't just be about clearing a roster spot. For Haslam, it would be about reasserting his control over the franchise and removing a distraction he never wanted in the first place. While Cleveland is grappling with a self-inflicted crisis of talent and politics, the New Orleans Saints are facing a full-blown, five-alarm existential fire. Their entire offseason strategy was thrown into a wood chipper when their veteran starting quarterback, Derek Carr, announced his abrupt and unexpected retirement. The move left the organization completely exposed at the most critical position in all of sports. The contingency plan, if you can even call it that, was a desolate landscape of unproven commodities and lingering question marks. There's Jake Haener, a young quarterback who has shown fleeting moments of competency but has never convinced anyone he can be a reliable long-term starter. There's Spencer Rattler, a once heralded college phenom whose immense physical gifts have yet to translate into any meaningful NFL success. And then there is the primary source of the fan base's incandescent rage, Tyler Shough. The Saints stunned the NFL world by selecting Shough in the second round of the draft. A move that was widely criticized at the time, and now looks downright catastrophic. The team's preseason opener was not just a loss, it was a public humiliation. Shough, the quarterback the front office chose over Shedeur Sanders, threw a soul-crushing pick six. It wasn't an unlucky tip or a great play by a defender. It was a telegraphed pass, read like an open book from the moment it left his hand. The other quarterbacks fared no better, leading an offense that looked disjointed, uninspired, and completely inept. The online reaction from the famously passionate Saints fan base was not just disappointment, it was a declaration of war on the front office. They were watching their team stare into the abyss of a lost season, all while the quarterback they could have had was becoming a legend in another city. This is the point where the ghost of draft day rises from its grave to haunt every decision the Saints front office makes. The memory is still painfully fresh. The Saints were on the clock multiple times with Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback with a championship pedigree and unparalleled marketability, sitting right there on the board, available for the taking. Yet they passed on him again and again, ultimately hitching their wagon to Tyler Show. Now every single highlight of Sanders carving up a defense feels like a personal calculated insult to the entire city of New Orleans. Local sports talk radio has become a 24/7 tribunal, with furious callers demanding accountability from general manager Mickey Loomis. Social media has become a digital monument to the team's colossal blunder, an endless scroll of posts lamenting the decision. Still in disbelief, the Saints had a choice between Tyler Show and Shedeur Sanders, a decision that'll haunt them for years. One viral tweet read, another simply said, LOL, they saw Shedeur sitting there and thought, nah, Show is our guy. This is no longer just ambient fan noise. It's a powerful, unified chorus of regret and anger that creates immense pressure on an organization to do something, anything, to correct a mistake of this magnitude before it permanently stains their legacy. And this is the exact moment where this entire story pivots from a compelling narrative of what-ifs into a shocking, tangible possibility. According to multiple league sources and insider whispers, the solution is not only available, but is being offered at an unbelievable discount. The Browns, seemingly driven by Jimmy Haslam's desire to quell any quarterback controversy before it begins, are reportedly willing to trade Shedeur Sanders for a package centered around a 7th-round draft pick or conditional late-round compensation. Let that sink in. A 7th-round pick. In the NFL's trade economy, a 7th-round pick is a lottery ticket, a flyer you take on a long snapper or a special teams player who has a 50-50th shot of even making the team. It is, for all intents and purposes, nothing. To offer a player who just delivered one of the most impressive and widely watched preseason debuts in recent league history for such a paltry return is not just bad business, it's organizational sabotage. For the New Orleans Saints, this rumored offer is nothing short of a miracle. It is a golden parachute, a get-out-of-jail-free card handed to them by the very team that unknowingly holds the key to their salvation. They are a franchise drowning in desperation, with a glaring hole at quarterback, a restless fan base on the verge of open revolt, and a front office that knows its credibility is on the line. The rumored price tag makes this a low-risk, franchise-altering gamble they almost can't afford not to take. This perfect storm of Cleveland's internal politics and New Orleans' abject desperation has transformed a wild fan theory into a dangerously plausible scenario, a powder keg waiting for a single phone call to ignite it. We now find ourselves at a franchise-altering standoff, a high-stakes game of chicken with the futures of two teams hanging in the balance. In one corner, you have the Cleveland Browns, an organization blessed with a potential superstar they never asked for, helmed by an impulsive owner who appears more concerned with maintaining absolute control than with cultivating future success. Jimmy Haslam is weighing his own political convenience against a player who could define the next decade of his franchise. In the other corner, you have the New Orleans Saints, a team backed into a corner by their own hubris, staring down the barrel of a lost season. They are facing a legacy-defining choice: double down on their catastrophic draft day mistake, or pull the trigger on a historic trade that could redeem them in the eyes of their city. All the pieces are on the board. The motives are clear, the stakes are impossibly high, and the tension is becoming unbearable. In the NFL, whispers have a funny way of turning into breaking news alerts overnight. The clock is ticking, and a single phone call between these two front offices could trigger a league-shaking transaction that will be analyzed, debated, and second-guessed for years to come. If it happens, Shedeur Sanders could be wearing black and gold by the end of the week, leaving the city of Cleveland to grapple with the bitter, agonizing question of how and why they let a legitimate star walk out the door for nothing more than pennies on the dollar.